Yo, what is good, everybody? Back here with the Pierce the Canvas podcast. We are here with night 2 of AEW Dynamite Fyter Fest. Today is July 21st, 2021. And what a show we got here wrapped up. Or I could even say like a last couple shows because I guess this is like a 2-show series here. Fyter Fest was just absolutely fantastic this year. Absolutely fantastic 4 hours of wrestling. They did like nearly as fantastic a job. Maybe the first show has a bit of the edge as far as like which one was better, but this week's main event might have actually been the superior in my opinion, even on top of the coffin match from last week. So tonight, the three big matches here were John Moxley and Lance Archer for the IWGP US title in the Texas Death Match. Jericho has his first labor against Shawn Spears, and then we also had Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose for the women's title. So it was a pretty stacked card all around. We had some other great matches: Wheeler Yuta versus Darby Allin. Great stuff across the board. Absolutely love this show, and yeah, we'll get into it here. The show began with Chris Jericho versus Shawn Spears. This is Jericho's first of the 5 labors assigned by MJF. Right, he's got to go through the 4 labors in order to finally get to MJF being the 5th labor. So tonight was labor number 1 against Shawn Spears. The rule was that Shawn Spears could use a chair, and Jericho cannot. So obviously Shawn Spears had a big advantage, but was he able to do it? Let's see. And we also saw before the match started, MJF joined commentary, received a whole lot of boos. The crowd was absolutely fantastic tonight, man. Like, they might have been better than last week. The crowd across the board was just absolutely amazing. And especially for Chris Jericho as he came out, as they are every week. It's not really different any week, but I'm just like still not really used to it. Having the fans back and everything. I'm really really cherishing it. And I'm never gonna like take it for granted again. So every time they flip out, I love it, and they did for Chris Jericho here. And the match was okay. Shawn Spears targeted Jericho's arm, whipping a chair at it. Jericho eventually was able to do a comeback and landed a double axe handle from the top. He got Spears up top and actually landed a top rope Rana, which was insane, and it was fairly smooth too. I haven't seen Jericho land anything like that in a long time. So it was really cool to see that. Spears landed a spine buster at one point for a near fall. Got the chair back, begins beating on Jericho until Jericho is able to counter and lock in the walls of Jericho. And that was locked in for actually quite a while. Spears tapped out at one point, but Tully Blanchard was there to distract Aubrey Edward, which is like, it's like the most weird, way to distract the referee. It's like, oh, I don't want my guy tapping out even though he's in aggravating pain. Let him keep going through it. So he distracts the referee. Walls is still locked in. Sammy Guevara actually came out and got rid of Tully. But Spears lands a headshot to Chris Jericho and landed his C4 signature maneuver for a near fall. Spears attempts another C4. This time he has like the chair on top of Jericho and he's going to land the C4. But Jericho's able to throw Spears into a propped corner chair and lands the Judas effect for the win. So it wasn't the longest match, but it pretty much got everything out of the way as far as what it needed to do. So MJF hit the mic after and said that Jericho was able to pass labor number 1, but, unfortunately he had the help of Sammy Guevara. So MJF says that if anybody helps you in the next 3, or I guess 4 labors, the deal's off. So no more of your friends showing up. MJF says that next week there will be a no disqualification match, and he kind of hypes it up, says this is the most violent man we know, says that he's like stabbed somebody in a match, he robbed a bank without a mask on, and right there I was like, oh my god, dude, freaking Nick Gage. And lo and behold, he announces Nick Gage is going to show up next week to face Jericho. And I was saying with my buddy, like, it's kind of weird that Nick Gage feels inclined to back up the Pinnacle, you know what I mean? Like, that just seems kind of out of character for Nick Gage. But at the same time, I'm sure Nick Gage, the character Nick Gage, is always down to fucking kick ass any day of the week. So I'm sure he's going to have a great match with Jericho next week. Really looking forward to that. And I think he's also wrestling Kenny Omega this Saturday. Which, yeah, if that's happening, that's going to be absolutely crazy. Or at some point this weekend. I think he's literally fighting Matt Cardona one day, and next day he's wrestling Kenny Omega. So next we hear a very short little promo video from Miro. He calls himself the Redeemer now. Says something to the effect that he'll be the last TNT champion. You know, he's never going to lose a belt. He's going to be wrestling at the Jacksonville show. I think that's in 2 weeks. Next week is Fight for the Fallen. So we have another special episode next week for AEW. And Miro basically just says he's like God's favorite champion. Basically the same stuff he's been saying over the last several weeks. And then we had a pretty decent match here. It was Doc Gallows versus Frankie Kazarian. So, of course, Frankie Kazarian's the elite hunter, so I guess he's going after every member. So he was able to land a missile dropkick early in the match before eating a huge big boot. At one point, Carl Anderson was able to get a shot in when the referee was distracted. Kazarian's able to land a backdrop on Gallows, which is impressive considering how tall Luke Gallows is. Lands a springboard leg drop. Carl Anderson landed a leg drop to... Kaz landed a leg drop to Carl Anderson before getting a double choke slammed by Doc Gallows for the win. And then there's a post-match Magic Killer by the Good Brothers to Kazarian. Kenny Omega's music hits. And Callis comes out talking about how no one should mess with the Elite. Kazarian is like still down at this point in the middle of the ring, and they all start surrounding him. Kenny says that Kazarian has been a thorn in their side. He says that it was kind of funny little spot. He's like, the Elite Hunter has now become... and he's like, shit, Callis, what do I say? And then Callis whispers in his ear, and then Kenny's like, oh yeah, the Elite Hunter has now become the Elite Hunted. So I guess Kenny forgot his line there. Before Kenny can attack with the belt, I swear we've seen this exact same thing for the last 3 weeks straight, where Kenny has the belt, he's about to attack somebody, and then Adam Page's music comes on, and he comes out for the save. So Kenny's not been able to attack anybody with his belt. Poor guy. And of course he has beer in hand. Callis points out there's 4 of them, and there's only one Hangman, and he asks if he's stupid or drunk. Hangman hands his drink to Callis and goes after the Elite, but is eventually overwhelmed. So the Dark Order was quickly running out and got rid of the heels. Silver, Reynolds, and Adam Page attacked Carl Anderson to end the segment. So the unfolding story between Kenny Omega and Adam Page, who I do believe will win that title. So next was Brian Cage in the back with Dasha. So Dasha informed Brian Cage that Team Taz made an announcement, and so they shoot to a video package taken earlier, and Taz mentioned how Starks won the FTW title last week, and Starks invited us to one of the biggest celebrations ever for his title win. I guess it's taking place next week, whenever that is. Cage said that he will be there. So that feud will be continuing. And next up, we have once again here joining us from New Japan, or wherever he's from. Yeah, I keep thinking he's from New Japan for some reason, but it's Wheeler Yuta. And there goes off my Alexa. Wheeler Yuta versus Darby Allin. Wheeler Yuta's got Orange Cassidy in his corner. I guess Orange Cassidy kind of got him over to AEW. They were really, really tight before AEW, like in the Indies and everything, so they know each other from there, I think, as well as Trent and Chuck Taylor. So Orange Cassidy was there for the match, and Sting was with Darby Allin. And some guy I never heard of who's becoming a big deal quickly here, this NJPW star named Hikuleo, I think was his name, was in the crowd watching the match. And this match was extremely entertaining because Wheeler Yuta and Darby Allin, they're very similar size, not only size but also styles. So they were, it was quite a styles, not a styles clash, the opposite of that. They worked really well together in the ring in terms of their speed and athleticism. It was pretty amazing to watch. Allin at one point lands a superplex. And then my favorite part of the match, Sting and Orange Cassidy kind of tense up at ringside and they stare each other down. Cassidy does his pockets trick, and Sting ends up shooting those Orange Cassidy kicks. So they start kicking each other, and then they end with they both go back and they do the big little kick. It was freaking hilarious. I loved that. That made this whole thing worth it. Not that it wasn't. It was still worth it anyway. So Allen's able to land his stunner, heads up top, lands his coffin drop for the win. And then there was an attack by Blade after the match. I believe it was on Orange Cassidy. So we see a preview for Lance Archer versus Jon Moxley. We see footage from the New Japan Texas Death Match. We hear both guys just basically hyping tonight's match. Lance says that he's going to make Moxley see stars. Moxley says that tonight is basically the end of the rivalry. Like, this will be the last match between the two guys for this championship. And that brought us to the Women's World Championship match. Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose. Britt Baker was with Rebel, Nyla Rose with Vicky Guerrero. And into the match, Nyla Rose is able to land a pretty big press slam followed by a leg drop. As well, later on, she was able to land a Uranagi, lands backbreakers on Baker as well. And then I think it might have been after the backbreaker spot, Nyla Rose goes for a pin, and I swear to God, Paul Turner counted like a 4 count for a 2 count. I'm not even joking. Like, the guy like just keeps tapping the mat. And anyway, it was a 2 count. Even though he like counted more than one fall, really, but okay. So we got a Death Valley Driver by Nyla Rose, and she sets up for her signature knee drop and lands it, like the top rope knee drop that she does, or middle rope. Baker is able to land a swinging neck breaker as well as thrust kicks, and that leads to a near fall. Choke slam by Nyla Rose for a near fall. And these two, unlike the Wheeler and Allen match, these two don't work quite as well. There was a little sloppiness in the match. I was able to notice, like, not everything they were trying to do with each other was really working. The pacing of the match was kind of awkward at times, so wasn't the greatest thing. Baker was able to land curb stomps for a near fall as well. And then at one point they went for the Eddie Guerrero spot, so Baker took her title, pretending she's about to knock out Nyla Rose, but throws the title to Rose and falls down. But Nyla Rose, I guess, being that she's with Vicky Guerrero, she's like, oh, I'm not going to fall for it, because, you know, she's affiliated with the Guerreros. So she throws the title back to Baker, and she lands the Beast Bomb for a near fall. No one ended up getting disqualified for the belt fake. And another Beast Bomb attempt afterwards, but Baker is able to kind of maneuver into a lockjaw, and that's locked in for a while until Nyla Rose taps out. And still, our AEW Women's World Champion here is Britt Baker, so congrats to her. That was her first defense. And yeah, just like from here, you know, I'm not too sure what she's going to be doing, who she's going to be feuding with. Not gonna lie, I would probably really like to see her feud with Impact's Women's Champion, Deonna Purrazzo. I heard that was like kind of a little speculative thing floating around. That's something I really wouldn't mind seeing, but as far as within AEW, it's kind of running thin here as far as the contenders for Britt Baker, so we'll see what they pull out next for us. So Shivani, this was an awkward segment. Shivani's kind of hosting like this panel for next week's tag match between FTR and Proud and Powerful. And, you know, these panels, this is a type of thing where it should be like a kind of, you know, like a main segment of the show. This wasn't even announced or anything. It was just out of the blue. And it was very, very awkwardly paced and shot, this whole segment. So Dax speaks first, and everybody only gets to say like 8 words at a time, and then the camera cuts. So it's clearly not only just like an awkward segment, but they were clearly in a rush to get through it as well. So Dax says they came from that, you know, both these guys, both these teams came out of poverty, and I think he said something like, "I have respect for you guys as men, but not wrestlers," or maybe it was the other way around. He said something like that. Ortiz said that while FTR have been playing patty cakes elsewhere, they've been in AEW since day one. And then Santana takes kind of a left turn. He even literally says, forget about this wrestling stuff. I'm like, okay, where's this going? So he takes out a picture of his mother at 15 having Santana. Says like, you know, here's a picture of my mom's apartment that we were in. And then he takes out a newspaper and he's like, this is when she had to take slumlords to court or whatever. So I really don't know what that has anything to do with this match. I guess they're competing against each other to see who had the worst childhood. Sure, whatever. And yeah, and after that, they just got into each other's faces, and it ended. It took me probably longer to describe all this than it went by. It went by very, very quickly, very awkwardly paced, and just the content of the segment was weird, kind of awkward. Followed by another kind of awkward segment here, we had Andrade El Idolo with Tony Schiavone. And of course, Andrade takes the mic out of Tony's hand, as that's like everyone's gimmick here in this company. Says he has a surprise for everyone, and he has some guy in the ring. I don't know who that was. He was referred to, I think, a couple times throughout the segment, but I don't think it was mentioned who the hell this guy was. But there's somebody with him in the ring, some dude in a suit. Anyway, Tony announces that we have Chavo Guerrero coming as Andrade's new manager. So they actually got rid of Vicky Guerrero. He literally said, like, his new manager. He didn't say the word manager, but he said his new something, and it basically meant manager. So yeah, we got Chavo Guerrero replacing Vicky, which I have no complaints about at all. Chavo acts shocked that the crowd remembers him. Voice crack. Acts shocked that the crowd remembers him, and he hypes up Dallas. He's definitely playing a babyface role, even though he's a heel. Like, he's managing a heel guy, so he's by default he's a heel. He even continues kind of big upping the roster, like saying that everybody in the back is great, talented wrestlers, and it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. But he does say nobody is a match against Andrade, and out comes Death Triangle and Alex Abrahantes. And Pac says that he doesn't know who Andrade thinks he is. Says he should have never spoke Death Triangle's name, and it should be known that Death Triangle hides from no one. Andrade says they're good, but not compared to him, and he speaks some Spanish, which I guess it's basically like how Alex translates for Penta, Chavo translates for Andrade, and says that Andrade said that they're all talented, but he looks at their ways and it's not shiny enough, which I don't necessarily get what that means. Says to change that and start listening to Andrade. And Andrade asks Penta and Phoenix why they work for Pac. And Andrade just like insists that they work for him. He's like, "You guys work for me now," and it's like, well, no, they don't. So they just denied that, and and then Pac says that they're a family in the Brotherhood, and says that, and I think Phoenix said that they're the real face of Latinos. And Penta spoke some Spanish, and Alex was there to translate, and says that they wouldn't want to join Andrade as he's not on the same level as them. And then they're about to fight each other. The Death Triangle gets to the ring, but the referees intervene quick enough to prevent any violence. The Hardy family office, we see a segment from them, I believe, was also taped earlier in the night. They got in the fight with Jurassic Express, and then we just cut to Christian in the back ridiculing the Hardy family office for going after Jurassic Express. Christian says that next week will be them. Dang, I kind of missed it. I think it was them versus Angelico and Private Party, like Christian, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus. It's either that or it's like a 4-on-4. It's something like that. So we're gonna get another HFO versus Christian and Jurassic Express match. So that feud technically isn't over yet. And so next it's Alex Marvez with QT and the Factory. And Alex Marvez asks QT about he like poured stuff on Tony's head last week, and QT says that they won't do it to Marvez since he doesn't disrespect them. And QT says that Tony will be getting an apology. I don't see what that's doing for anybody. So next we got Blade versus Orange Cassidy. So they did the kind of thing where Blade got to the ring and then Orange Cassidy's music came on, but he never came out until he did. But before he did, Blade was like insisting to the referee that he won by forfeit. Again, Cassidy snuck in at one point. The Blade, a little bit into the match, starts selling a knee injury in the corner, and he's selling it for quite a while. Like, I even started to think, like, did something go wrong? But no, it was all a work. So the referee is keeping Orange in the corner, like keeping him distracted. So Blade goes after Cassidy. But then he's able to reverse with the Slumdog Millionaire shortly after. And then the Blade landed like the craziest thing I've ever seen him do. He did gut wrench like power bomb. So he had Orange Cassidy at the top rope, like in a superplex position, but then he switched to a gut wrench power bomb position and landed him on the top rope, and it looked brutal, pretty hard landing. So Cassidy lands a crossbody, lands a spinning DDT signature, comeback kind of thing. Bunny distracts. Chris Statlander is also ringside and goes after the Bunny. I think something happened where like Chris Statlander got pushed into Orange Cassidy, and then Blade got pushed into the Bunny kind of thing. And then Blade landed a corkscrew tombstone for a near fall. That would make some old timers really mad. Blade went for a Dr. Bomb, but I believe Cassie was able to reverse and landed a beach break for a near fall. Bunny is able to throw the brass knuckles to the Blade. I think Chris Statlander attacked her right after that. Orange lands an orange punch and actually got the win. But Cassie wasn't finished. He put on the knucks himself, landed another orange punch to the Blade. So yeah, we'll see what's next for Orange Cassidy. And the Blade, I guess. So Alex Marvez is with Chris Jericho now. Chris Jericho's cutting a promo back to us, so we can't see his face at all. And he says that, you know what? If MJF is going to be bringing along the most violent person in wrestling to AEW, he said he's going to have to bring out his most violent side, or like his most violent self next week. Turns around to reveal that he has put on his Painmaker attire from New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we're going to get an amped up Jericho next week against frickin' Nick Gage. It's going to be insane. I'm really curious how that match is going to go. And we got a quick announcement. I believe in 2 weeks we are going to be getting the match between Malachi Black and Cody. So really, really excited for that. Malachi Black, of course, former Aleister Black's first match in AEW. And that brings us to the main event of the evening, and holy smokes, this was a crazy match. Lance Archer versus Jon Moxley in a Texas death match for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. The only way to win is by knockout or submission. And I noticed Jon Moxley wearing a Street Fighter / AEW collaboration shirt. So I don't know, maybe there's like going to be an AEW add-on to one of the Street Fighter games or something. I wonder what that's all about. So Archer makes his entrance second, and the fight just goes off mid-entrance. Moxley arms himself with a kendo stick and starts wailing off. Lance gains advantage and uses the stick himself. Guys fight into the crowd, and Lance freaking just picks up a fan, and it just looked like a fan. It didn't even look like a plant, although I'm sure legally it like had to have been a plant. But yeah, he just like took some fan and threw him at Moxley. That was hilarious. So they make it back to the ring area, and Lance peels away the ring mat, and Moxley is able to land a paradigm shift, a pretty sloppy one at that, but a paradigm shift nonetheless, on the concrete floor. Maybe it was sloppy because it was the concrete floor. He doesn't want to actually crack a guy's skull open. But nonetheless, regardless of that, Archer was busted open. So what does Moxley take out but a fork? And this is the second time in like a week I'm seeing a fork used as offense in wrestling. Kenny Omega used a fork against Sami Callihan at Impact Slammiversary. So Moxley has a fork and starts repeatedly sticking it in Lance's face, and we get Usyk fuck chants, and they quickly go to commercial, like picture in picture, and Lance is just like bleeding out. And yeah, like what must advertisers think of this? Their commercial is on, and then right next to their commercial is some guy bleeding out to death. It's freaking crazy. And during the commercial, the ring is loaded up with chairs and a trash can. Moxley continues attacking with the fork during commercial. And back from commercial, Moxley had Archer's leg stuck in a chair, and he jumps onto it from the middle rope. And this was the most, like, no-sold, jumping on some guy's leg in a chair I've ever seen. That's the kind of thing in WWE where if it happens, that, like, ends your career kind of thing. And the selling is always so over the top. They're like rolling around screaming in pain. This guy barely sold it at all. So Moxley was about to clock Archer in the face with a trash can lid, and Archer just punches this trash can lid into Moxley's face and knocks him the hell out. Well, it doesn't really knock him out because the match kept going. So Moxley tells Lance that he ain't shit at one point and starts biting into the wound. Moxley lands a German suplex. Lance quick comeback with a big boot and uses his ripcord slam and awaits the 10 count, but Moxley's able to get up. Lance takes Moxley out again with a trash can and sets up 2 chairs. This busts open John Moxley. And so Moxley switched around the chairs so that both of the tips of the chair are facing each other for maximum impact. So Archer attempts a blackout on the chairs. Moxley escapes and lands a low blow, which I believe the fans booed. So actually, I think Moxley was kind of the heel in this match. Well, he was definitely the heel in the match, just the way he was wrestling. But even to the crowd, I think Lance Archer was the favorite here, which is freaking awesome, man. Because I love Lance Archer, and I'm glad that the people recognize that he's freaking awesome. And everyone wanted him to win, right? Moxley doesn't need to win this match. He doesn't need to keep carrying that belt. So Lance is able to land a choke slam to Moxley on those 2 chairs. So brutal impact. I would definitely check out that spot. I would check out this whole match if I were you. So Moxley lands a paradigm shift, and the referee begins counting. Counts only to 4. Archer no-sells it. Gets right back up. Moxley takes his fork back and just continues stabbing Archer in the face with it. And so they have 2 tables set up in ringside. Moxley takes 2 barbed wire boards and puts them on the tables. Moxley attempts a paradigm shift through the tables, but Lance actually pulled out the fork during this attempt and kills Moxley with the fork and choke slams him through the 2 tables with barbed wire for the win. Moxley was tangled in that barbed wire. There's 0 chance of that guy getting out of there. So we have it. Your new IWGP US Heavyweight Champion is Lance Archer. And I think that's freaking so great. I'm really happy that he has a championship now. It's basically like a AEW New Japan split championship at this point. So just the fact that the guy has gold, it makes me happy as ever. Love seeing him with that. I don't know if he's really signed to New Japan, so I'm curious if he's going to defend the title in Japan. We know his first defense is in fact going to be next week against Hikuleo, the guy I mentioned earlier who was in the crowd. So he actually came up to the ring after Lance won, and they're face-to-face. And, dude, this guy's huge, man. Looking him in the crowd, he just looked like some guy. He looks a lot like Tama Tonga, actually. He just looked like, Tama Tonga-sized guy, right? But then he gets in the ring to face Lance, and he's taller than him. Dude, it's like, if you watch this stuff on TV, you'll see exactly what I mean. Why he's so deceptively tall. But yes, once again, we'll see the first defense next week, Hikuleo versus Lance Archer. So really excited for that. And again, I think this was an all-around fantastic show. AEW just needs to keep this up, man. These shows have been freaking awesome, show after show after show. So next week I got Fight for the Fallen. The week after we have Homecoming. They're going to go back to Daly's Place, apparently for the last time in a long time. They're not planning on going back anytime soon. So we're going to have the Fight for the Fallen and Homecoming coming up, and be sure to tune here right after those shows for the coverage. As always, thank you very much for watching Pierce the Canvas Podcast. We will be back next week. This is Pierce signing out. Take care, everyone.